welcome back to my channel. And if you're new here, welcome to my channel, Joe Knows Adventure. And today is the 3rd of May 2025, and I'm taking you down to another Best of New Orleans, and it's called the Storyville Museum. And I think you'll find some interesting things on this. It's a very interesting museum downtown near the French Quarter. So let's go. The Storyville Museum is the brainchild of New Orleans native and longtime French Quarter resident Claude Sadlier. After a successful business career in the early 2000s, in which he invented and commercialized the insulated paper coffee cup used around the world today, Sadlier spent years collecting priceless artifacts and researching the historical storyline for his passion project, a museum entirely dedicated to telling the rich, unique, and storied history of New Orleans and its notorious red light district known as Storyville. Storyville reigned from 1897 to 1917 as the largest and most ostentatious quasi-legal red light district the country has ever seen, offering patrons from all over the world live music, entertainment, gambling, and wide-open prostitution. To understand Storyville, we must first understand the history of New Orleans. The museum begins the story with a giant full-wall map of North America, which is divided by the mighty Mississippi River. In 1682, the French explorer René Robert Cavelier floats down the river and claims all of the lands drained by it for King Louis XIV of France. In 1718, the French city of La Nouvelle Orleans is founded by Jean-Baptiste de Bienville, about 90 miles upriver from the Gulf. Bienville requests that France send me wives for my men. They are running into the woods after the Indian girls. But the first boat arrives carrying correction girls, women of dubious morality, swept from the prisons of Paris. The men enjoy their company, but hardly anyone wants to marry them. This initial shipment is followed by the now famous casket girls, so named because they each arrive carrying a small casket or box containing their valuable possessions, one of which is on display in the museum. Unlike the correction girls, the casket girls are certified to be virgins and are taken in by the Ursuline nuns to become suitable wives for the early settlers. Historically, female civilians, including sex workers, have followed armies during times of war. These women, known as camp followers, provide a supporting function such as cooking, cleaning, nursing, and companionship to the soldiers. As Al Rowe writes in his definitive book about Storyville, when Andrew Jackson led his ill-assorted thousands to New Orleans, they made the trip on the promise that they would be paid, including accrued back pay in the Crescent City. The promise and troop movement was no secret, and the conversion of prostitutes in New Orleans soon became a scarlet migration without precedent. The women are not allowed to live or do business inside the French Quarter, so they set up camp in an uninhabited section of the wooded swamp just outside of the city walls. There they opened for business near the area which 80 years later would become Storyville. Flatboats laden with cargo navigating down the Mississippi River. Once they reach New Orleans, the cargo is unloaded, the barges are broken up and sold for lumber, and the riverboat men, flush with cash, head out into the city in search of a good time. 1858 to 1897, a plague of prostitution throughout the city. In the mid-1800s, prostitution is starting to spread indiscriminately throughout New Orleans. On any given block of the French Quarter, the central business district or uptown, one can find a sex worker plying her trade from her apartment, a house of assignation, or even a full-scale brothel. Various laws targeting lewd and abandoned women, such as the 1857 Loretta Law, have been passed, but even when enforced, these laws made little difference in deterring the widespread prostitution in the city. Simply put, a family buying or owning a home anywhere in New Orleans can no longer be sure that a bordello will not move in next door. Sidney Story is the father of Storyville. Sidney Story is born in New Orleans in 1863 into a prominent New Orleans family. In 1896, he is elected as an alderman on the New Orleans Common Council, alongside other reform candidates determined to clean up the city's image and eradicate vice. Prior to crafting his famous ordinance, Story embarks on a self-funded journey abroad in order to study how other European cities, such as Amsterdam, deal with prostitution. Upon his return, he skillfully drafts a law that establishes a de facto red light district in New Orleans. The district becomes known to locals as Storyville, which proves to be both a compliment and a bitter pill to swallow for its sponsor, Sidney Story. This photo shows the 14-block Storyville district out by Iberville Street on the left and St. Louis Street on the right, and Robertson Street at the top, just below St. Louis No. 2 Cemetery, and Basin Street at the bottom. As a point of reference, Tom Anderson's saloon is in the lower left corner of the photograph, marking the beginning of the 2-block stretch of opulent brothels along Basin Street, which ends at St. Louis Cemetery No. 1 in the lower right-hand corner. This room is a replica of what an actual Storyville brothel reception parlor looks like, based on photos contained in the Blue Books. The extensive use of wallpaper and fabrics draped from the walls and ceilings is a popular decorating style in the early 1900s. The ladies are sent to the parlor by the madam of the house to meet their potential customers. The ghosts of the ladies, who all appear in period dress, are created using a 150-year-old trick of lighting technique called Pepper's Ghost. This illusion is invented and first demonstrated in a theater in 1862 by the English scientist John Henry Pepper. Today, the effect can be achieved by large hidden video screens instead of live actors to create the visibly reflection on the glass. Thus we have Pepper's Ghosts. These are the cribs behind the glitzy brothels, tucked in the back streets of Storyville amongst the dance halls. Are cribs. They're one-room apartments containing a bed, a wash basin, dresser, chair, and fireplace with a front door that opens directly onto the street. These rooms are about $3 a day. Crib workers run their own businesses, often standing half naked in their doorway, calling out to customers. Crib work is down and dirty numbers game with an emphasis on quantity versus quality. The women charge from 25 cents to $1 per session or trick and never spend more than 15 minutes with a customer. According to Louis Armstrong, lots of the prostitutes lived in different sections of the city and would come down to Storyville just like they had a job. There were different shifts for them. Sometimes two prostitutes would share the rent in the same crib together. One would work in the day and the other at night. So this is like a crib interior. It's a replica of what an actual Storyville crib would have looked like, based on 4 photographs and first-hand descriptions. The front door and window opened directly onto the street, and the sex workers were in full view of anyone who happened to walk by. Storyville booms for its first 10 years, but by 1910, prostitution in the district is starting to decline. This phenomenon is also being observed in red light districts in other American cities. It is believed that this is partly due to shifts in attitudes toward premarital relationships and sex. Men and women are emerging from a socially restricted Victorian age and starting to date and interact with far fewer restrictions. For instance, a decade ago, it would be unthinkable for society women to wear makeup and go on a date without a chaperone, but now it is more common than not. Commenting on this trend, Madame Willie Piazzi, owner of the Basin Street brothel, famously states, "The country club girls are ruining my business." Alcohol prohibition and segregation efforts in the early 1900s are also directly affecting Storyville. In 1908, the Louisiana legislature passes the so-called Gay Shattuck Law. This law prohibits women from working or drinking in bars and nightclubs, prohibits blacks and whites from drinking in the same place, and bans live music and drinking establishments. While the law is largely overlooked in Storyville, sporadic enforcement does have a negative impact on business. While these factors contribute to the decline in prostitution in Storyville, it is ultimately World War I that shuts it down completely. In 1939, the Housing Authority of New Orleans purchases and demolishes most of the buildings in Storyville and erects in their place the city's first public housing project, named the Iberville Housing Project. After sustaining major damage during Hurricane Katrina, the area is redeveloped and revitalized into the Bienville Basin community, which opened in 2015. All right, everybody. I hope you found that really interesting. It was a nice little museum, and it's right down by plenty of parking, by Louis Armstrong Park, by the a cemetery that you can take tours of, down not too far from the French Market, Canal Street. So very conveniently located and within walking distance if you're in any of the hotels there. So a really neat place, and highly suggest the best museum on Conti Street. So that being said, I am hoping that you give this video a thumbs up, comment, ask questions, share, and of course, subscribe if you haven't already. And this is a little different for me because I'm in between cruises. Like I explained, May is a graduation month for my granddaughter, so I did not plan a cruise for this month. So my next cruise will be in September, and I will have a cruise in October, and I will have a cruise in January. So plenty of cruises coming up, and the planning videos for all that, packing, shopping, and all that. But in the meantime, I am taking you around New Orleans for different things like our best parks, our best bridges, our best roads, all that. So just stay tuned for more with videos from me, and I'm sure you'll enjoy each one of them, right? So thank you for joining me for this one, of course. And until next week, I hope everybody's having a great day, being safe, whatever you're doing, and I will see you next week. Love you all. Bye-bye.